Ms. Deirdre Shurland, thank you again for the honor of coming to the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy and for the excellent lecture you gave. We'd like to ask you just a few follow-up questions to go a little deeper into some of the issues. So I would like to touch the issue of nation branding. One of the most visible aspects of nation branding is tourism. Sustainable tourism should therefore be regarded as a way to promote a country's sense of responsibility and concern for the environment. In reality, numerous countries seem to be reticent to engage in ecotourism. Why?
Well, I don't think there's any one reason, if there's a reason at all. Remember, tourism is a sector of choice, and it depends on, it has traditionally started depending on the array of natural attractions available in the country, whether it be natural attractions like beaches, coasts, mountains, scenery, cultural attractions, the heritage resources that we're all familiar with. And I think it's also a question of people's understanding of what ecotourism is. It has been mostly applied where there's an abundance of natural attractions, forests, where mountain lodges or eco-resorts, as they call them, have developed. So I'm not so certain it's merely a question of reticence. I think it's what people understand the product to be like, to look like, and whether or not they have the resources and they can organize in terms of an ecotourism type product.
Mm-hmm. Okay, my next question would be about the environmental responsibility. In your opinion, which forms of environmental activism do you consider to have the most potential in raising awareness with a broader public? And with the recent economic crisis, how do you make public and the private sector acknowledge the importance of sustainable development?
Number of things in that question. The first is when we talk about environmental activism, I would usually associate that with the groups like Greenpeace, which are renowned. And it's not the work that I do, but they certainly have been able to make some significant breakthroughs over the past several decades. There are many others, and they're not necessarily only in tourism or environment, who have advocated. We need them. We need them to keep us honest. We need them to provide the balance and to keep us in check and to be the watchdogs, so to speak, of development. But remember too that development is not an easy thing for a lot of people to do. And now that we are in a relatively resource-poor cycle of our existence, I think what is more important is that rather than relying only on the state to provide resources, we now have to find the ways of unlocking resources from the private sector, from communities, from various other stakeholders, especially in tourism, which requires a multi-stakeholder approach. So I think that if it's anything, if we need to find a message, we need to say to all the tourism stakeholders, the public sector, the private sector, NGOs, communities, whomever is in the supply chain, that we need resources. You are a partner. You live or work at the destination. Help us to build a good product, a good quality product. So I would certainly favor a multi-stakeholder approach to fundraising.
Okay. What do you think about cultural diplomacy?
Well, I certainly am not the expert, but I understand.
Maybe as an issue, I see the similar to the environmental issues and culture as a possible platform to connect the people from different backgrounds, based on a common interest which they can follow. Could you maybe list any positive examples?
Well, from my perspective, and I would be very frank with you, I'm not a cultural diplomat. I'm not even sure what it means, but I'll tell you something. In my course of work in tourism, there are a number of heritage type resources, relics of the past, areas, natural areas which are so significant from either an ecological standpoint, or they may have served a particular route that facilitated the trade in some historical time, or ancient peoples that may have preserved the life. And this is a tremendous story to tell to anyone. And it builds nationhood in the sense that it gives us as nationals or citizens a sense of who we are, where we have come from, a sense of worth in terms of when we have visitors that come specifically to see something that we have taken for granted. And if this is what cultural diplomacy is, then it's very much fundamental to the development question and to tourism. And it's a fabulous story, but in some cases it's just not being told properly because it takes too much time to unearth the treasures, to interpret it. There's a lot of resources that has to go into reconstruction and rehabilitation of old buildings, and in many cases, because it's just one segment of the society that's providing the resources or the talent or the expertise to tell that story, it's not appreciated enough, you know. So, but from my standpoint, it's one of the most fascinating aspects of telling a good story at a destination and providing a great quality attraction to visitors.